everyone, and welcome to another episode of Person of Interest, an unscripted, fun, hopefully enjoyable and engaging conversation with somebody that I find very interesting, and hopefully you will too. So today we have Ariel Johnson, who I have known for, oh my goodness, like many, many years now. And we were connected through our alma mater, Union College. You're a few years younger than I am, so we were not on campus at the same time, but the Alumni Relations Office got us hooked up. So, so good to see you, my friend. Ariel is founder and CEO of Ariel Fox Design, a all-female commercial interior design business located in LA. And we got to jump right in here because behind you is something gorgeous. And I want you to talk, you're obviously gorgeous, but the stained glass, is that stained glass behind you? What's happening?
It is, yeah. So first of all, thank you for thinking that I'm interesting. I love you.
Always.
So yeah, I'm virtually at a project that we completed in Los Angeles, and behind me is a 16-foot stained glass custom feature wall that we designed with this incredible company in Pasadena. It's all edge lit, so I'm actually sitting up in the mezzanine level. So the glass kind of goes like down kind of below me. But this company was amazing to work with. They've been around since the 1800s. They've done all of the old stained glass for like Frank Lloyd Wright and a lot of like churches, but it was really like super fun to do this project with them. I love working with like artisans. That's like our jam.
I love it. And so let's talk more about your company and really, you started this, my gosh, when was this?
2008.
Yeah, you've been, and you've grown it. You've really done such a great job at growing it. So let's talk about really, let's touch on your vision, really some cool projects that you've been working on, and really what you have wanted, like, your business to be.
Yeah, it changes, as you experience things in life. I feel like the mission statement has evolved. And I think that is a good quality of a business leader, is you have to keep adapting and keep pushing and keep, being relevant. I started the company just really out of necessity. It was the market crash of 2008 and nobody was hiring. I got laid off of my hospitality job. And I was like, well, I can either sell furniture or just really hustle. And I did. I just took every project I could and just kind of made it work. Like I got really lucky. I got into a very kind of niche market, which is mixed use, new construction, multifamily condos. So in Los Angeles and Southern California, we have a real housing issue, and it's just been kind of prolific, actually, the amount of building that's been going on. And to be a part of that so early on, to get in there, it's been amazing because I don't have to do any marketing or advertising. It's just, you're kind of in it, and developers, they tour buildings, it's open to the public. And that's kind of the portfolio, is the work that we complete. And it's been really amazing. And I have the best team, the best team. That's what makes it all. That's the magic sauce, is all of our incredible designers that are working to execute.
You had mentioned, so we reconnected a year ago, and I was moderating a panel for Union, and you were on this panel. And I remember specifically, because we were talking about, this panel was made up of business owners, and we obviously were talking about COVID and how did you pivot, how did you adapt, like what's going on, and how's the team? And you were talking about the fact that you have an all-female team. And I remember that we were talking about like emotions and vulnerability and, you know, communication with an all-female team, because there was somebody else on that panel that was CEO of like manufacturing, which is
right. We're talking about empathy. Yeah. And they're like,
yes.
Empathy. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
like the whole thing.
So you were fantastic about that conversation because you just have a very authentic view about how empathetic you were with your team, just in general, but especially during this time. And let's talk about that just for a couple of minutes, because I think it's really important, because it shouldn't be a COVID thing.
No.
It should be one of the top, you know, things that a leader has towards their team. And I feel like you truly do have that. And I think it's great if you would talk about that.
Sure. I mean, I think it really comes down to fostering a trust, really trust between team members, trust to the leadership. I think if there is empathy, then trust kind of follows suit. You know, it gives everyone kind of room to be themselves and to be their best selves. And I think, like, you know, one thing that happened, well, a bunch of things happened, right, in COVID, but one thing that happened that was coming to the surface was, number one, like, mothers were getting really overwhelmed with, you know, doing a billion things. And so, you know, it wasn't like we had like an official workshop on it or anything, but it was just like a moment to moment, like, I'm here to support you. If you need to go get your kid, or you need to go like take some time off today, like, do that, whatever you need to do, like, family comes first. And also mental health was another thing. There's, you know, people that were struggling with either a roommate situation where they were living, or just, you know, general like freaking panic. Like, we were just talking before you started recording about like that month of March of like, I'm like, I don't even want to think about that. That was like catastrophic, like, you know, end of times, you know, thinking like we had no idea what was going on. And for us in our office, like, we literally like packed up our computers. Actually, we didn't even pack up our computers, just packed up our stuff. We're like, we'll be back in 2 weeks. And so we ended up having to like figure out, you know, actually, I think a couple of people did take their computers, I think, but we had to really figure out on the fly, like, how do we do this? Like, every business had to, but really being sensitive to people's emotional capacity and being really gentle about that. And it's interesting too, because I had a big meeting with one of our vendors about how large corporations are adopting now this hybrid model in their workforce, and what that means, you know, to design, like, how do we design for it? And it was very, it just felt like very verifying, you know, to see that a lot of these large companies are adopting some of the things that we implemented kind of right away, like instinctually, you know, like opening up conversation, like, what works, what doesn't work, you know, like, let's try new things. And I think, granted, it's harder for a larger company to be nimble like that and to try new things, but I think that this hybrid workforce is a really exciting way of, you know, working, you know, into the future. It allows people to have a lot of flexibility in their lives, but I think trust is a huge element of it, that that we have to be able to communicate with each other and how we're feeling, you know, like that really impacts your work flow, is like how you're feeling. So yeah, I think that's at top of mind right now, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were saying that before we got started today, that you are being very flexible with your team because people have different needs. Some people are hybrid, some people are working remotely, but you have been fantastic about really listening to what their needs are, it seems like, from my perspective.
Yeah. And also figuring out a way of including everyone, like this idea of technology inclusion, right? So we're having some people in the office every day, but how do we loop in those people that are working remotely to feel like they are in the room, to feel like they're part of what's happening. And I don't think it's a perfect science. I was saying earlier that I'm so happy to have in-person meetings, that like there's so much gratitude and excitement about like being in the flesh now, that it is hard. Like there is like that energy break, right, if you're on Zoom. But I think it's evolving, like we'll figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything cool that comes to mind that you've done for hybrid spaces from a design perspective, or anything that you're thinking about doing or you've heard? Like, talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think that technology, that there's this cool, it looks almost like a rolling whiteboard, that they would have in schools or something, but it's a giant smart TV. And so you can use it as a whiteboard, like you can write on it with your finger or a pen. But then you can also, it has a camera on it. And so you can also project for meetings, but the screen's so huge, and you can move it around the room wherever you need, that it just creates, like, I think, a little bit more of an easy interface with people, remotely. It makes them feel like they're in the room.
Mm-hmm.
But also, setting up your space to be flexible, right? I think that's a huge thing. Is, for us, we're kind of battling it, because we're like, okay, we have like this many desks and this many like shared desks and this many dedicated desks, and can we put things together if we need? Like, do we move furniture around? I chose a building that has a beautiful conference room that you could book out, like a massive conference room. Like if we needed more space for an in-person meeting for some reason that we couldn't accommodate. So it's also, I think, resource sharing too, in that way, is, in the event that, something we're unprepared for, we have resources we can reach out to be prepared for it.
Yeah.
And another thing too is that people, they've gotten used to not commuting. So that's also something that has been, for what we're doing in our company, is I opened up the office in Pasadena. And it's funny because people are like, well, you live in Sherman Oaks. Why would you do that? Why would you do that to yourself? And I'm like, because it's for the team. It's not for me. It's for my team. And most of them live in Pasadena or on, East LA, and it's easy for them to get to. And so we want to make this space easy to get to, beautiful, well-functioning. We got to like have the honey to attract,
Mm-hmm.
the people. It's like, so making the space, highly interesting and attractive and accessible has been really like one of the top priorities, and we succeeded in that so far. So
Good for you. And that's good to hear, because
yeah, it's pretty good.
you can have the best vision, you can have the best strategies, you can have a plan, but if you don't have a team that loves working together and with you, and they're happy, happy employees are productive employees. So you saying that you were thinking about the team first and not yourself, bravo, my friend.
Yeah, you have to. You have to. It's interesting. I was hearing another friend of mine who works remotely and is in a bigger company, and they're requiring now their remote workers to use the software to kind of like bill, per hour. So it's like a way to oversee their workflow, kind of hour by hour by hour. And I was like, I have mixed feelings about that. I understand from a business perspective and business owner, you want to make sure that your staff is, being compliant and being efficient and effective. But that kind of big brother vibe is not me at all. Like I am, in fact, it kind of bristles a little bit. Like I want to be able to trust my team. I don't want to know what you're doing every single second of the day. If you're generating great work, and you're generating it at your deadline, like, I don't care. go walk your cat in your yard, like whatever, you know. And it makes for people, you know, to really enjoy their work more. You know, you don't want to have to be like tethered to a time clock.
Mhm.
I mean, that actually has been one of the foundations of, you know, our work principles, is that I didn't want, you know, the team to be so focused on the clock. And a lot of firms are designed that way, right? You're billing like on an hourly basis for a project. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Meet our milestones, do great work, and that's it. That's all we have to worry about. Nice.
It's a wonderful philosophy, and it's really a one that I wish others would adopt as well. And seems like, you know, the top three things for a great culture you're doing: it's trust, it's respect, and it's appreciation for the work you've done.
Yeah.
Focusing on the nitty gritty of how and when it gets done. But you had mentioned something that I would love to talk about. You are doing this really cool project. It's called The Village, I want to say. Is that, tell me more about that.
Oh, I love this project. It is a mixed-use community building, multifamily community building in LA. And our client is the Etta Group. And they're a nonprofit for community residents on the spectrum. And so it's the first building in Los Angeles of its kind. And it's an amazing opportunity for a designer to use our talents to help a community live a better life. And so there were a lot of notes that we took, like there's a doctor on the team, and we took a lot of notes about, you know, the people on the spectrum, they don't like a lot of loud sound. They don't like a lot of contrast. Like we want the palette to be very like neutral and cozy. We want like a quiet room for reading. Like we want a big event space because they're going to hold events there. We want like a dining room. Like they have meals together as a community, which I think is super cool. There's a work lab so they can get training for jobs. There's a chef's kitchen so they can learn how to cook. But I think most importantly, I think it's a space it's a safe space for people to feel like they can be more social. And that was another, you know, interesting note that we picked up, is that the social aspect is really, really important to like life and betterment. So really, really excited about this project. I can't wait for it to be built. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, it sounds like an incredible and interesting project.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Well, we're at our time. You know, I like to keep these to 20 minutes. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for sharing your interesting insights, perspective. Like, I absolutely just love your business. I was telling you, I love to think of myself as an interior designer, but when the real interior designer walks in, such as yourself, I'm like, definitely could use some help. But you're an inspiration, and I thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I look forward to future conversations.
Always. Thank you for having me.
Okay, talk to you soon. Thank you everybody for joining us.